Good.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our live for today. And unfortunately, we are short one person today, and that is our dear Anissa, who unfortunately cannot make it due to some other family obligations. But we will continue without her, and she will most certainly be back next week to join us. But today we have our esteemed guest, Ettiene van den Berg, and we would just love to welcome you, Ettiene, and thank you for being here with us. I'll give you a short read up of his bio, if you allow me to. Ettiene van den Berg is a chartered marketer with over 30 years experience in senior executive positions within research, strategy, branding, media, advertising, and production. He holds various postgraduate qualifications and is accredited as a senior marketing professional by the European Marketing Federation. Ettiene has been actively involved in international bodies, serving as a council or board member for organizations like the South African Audience Research Foundation, the European Market Research Organization, Pan African Market Research Organization, amongst others. He is affiliated with the Marketing Association of South Africa, AMASA, World Advertising Association, and the World Marketing Federation. He was formerly the head of sales and marketing at BBC Television. He later became the group managing director at Brand Bar before co-founding Brand Fusion. Currently, Ettiene is the managing director of Brand Fusion and the Brand Fusion Foundation, as well as the co-founder of Shift Happens. His passion and extensive business experience extends to consulting, training, speech facilitation, and business. So, after that impressive bio, Ettiene, I'd just like to share with our viewers that with almost 20 years, Ettiene, you got your phone on or?
No, but I'm battling to hear you, Jamila.
Yes, because we seem to have some sort of interference. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Well, Jamila, thank you for that. It seems very strange listening to your bio, your own bio. It's like a out-of-body experience and sounds very strange, but thank you so much. It's an honor to be invited by you and Anissa.
Yes, I'm so sorry that she couldn't be here, and she is so saddened that she's missing out on this. But we will surely have you on again as a guest, and we will have this discussion with her present. On that, I'd just like to welcome everybody, all of our listeners from far and wide here in South Africa, as well as in all over the world. Ettiene and I are based in Johannesburg. And as I was saying, Ettiene and I have almost 20 years of friendship between us. So it feels like almost a lifetime. And we are also partners in Shift Happens, which is a life and business coaching company here. So for those that will be joining on the recorded version of this of today's chat, I'd also like to welcome you and also invite you to please respond to any of the comments or questions. If you have any questions, we will certainly respond to you. So without any further ado, let's go on to our first question, Ettiene. And we are moving, the theme or the common thread throughout our discussions is shifting from a state from grudge state to grit, grace, and gratitude. And let us go to the first question. How do you define grit in your life? And can you share an example of a situation where your grit was put to the test? And we would like to base the conversation around your experience, having been in an interracial, interfaith marriage. And could you possibly just share with us some of your challenges?
Thank you, Jamila. Yeah, I think that the classical definition of grit is along the lines of passion and perseverance for a long-term and meaningful goals. And maybe I can be a bit more philosophical in that sense. And I think in my life, well, definitely the first half of my life, I had a lot of grit in terms of pursuing goals and dreams, which I perceived to be my own. And then only later realized that it wasn't necessarily my own. So I think that the first part of my life, although I had quite a bit of grit, I think it was kind of later on I realized it was a bit of grudge, because as you grow and achieve things, I think the nature of the grit changes. And in my life, definitely got to a point where I decided to follow my own dreams and start to know myself on a deeper level. And I think there was a significant shift in my life when I decided to do things in accordance with myself and pursue my own passions and life goals. So, yeah, and I suppose a lot of people go through that. You know, in the early stages of life, you follow what you think you are meant to be, what the community expects of you, what your parents expect of you. When you get into relationships, what your family then expects of you. And maybe I can summarize it as the earlier part of my life trying to make a living. And I think the second part of my life is more focused on making a life.
That's so true. I mean, you go through your life, and as we were discussing yesterday in our conversation, you're so focused on how you come across with everybody else in this world, and you're so focused on pleasing everybody else in this world that you become consumed with that, often ignoring yourself and what you need and want, and as a result you don't get to living your life. As you say, I think as you progress along and you become older and wiser, you realize that your life is there for living, and you then realize the importance of that. And how do you translate this, or how do you inform your son, because you have a son who is now 20, and how do you advise him to be able to get into that space so that he doesn't have to wait for the second part of his life to start living, or to realize, or to have the awareness that now is the time to actually be present and to realize that you need to put yourself first and start living? instead of just merely existing and existing really, for others.
Jamila, I mean, that's a difficult one. I think Einstein said the only source of true knowledge is experience. And I see so much in my son if I look back, and you probably had the same experience with your son, and you kind of see yourself, and at this age, you often know everything, and probably reluctant to learn or listen to parents. They often listen to other adults and not necessarily their parents. But I think, and maybe just going back to my experience, I think for me, I've always had a journey trying to find truth and authenticity. So always been a bit inquisitive in my approach to life, and I was always the little redhead boy asking all the annoying questions, which I found adults couldn't really answer for me. And I think in my journey trying to find the truth, maybe, if I reflect back on it, I was born into a very religious family. And I think my first stop in my life was trying to find truth within religion. And at the time, it made a lot of sense and I enjoyed it. But there was always a couple of nagging questions that I didn't really get satisfactory answers for. I think later in my life, I thought I would be able to find the answers that I was seeking within the academic world, and then kind of dedicated myself in the academic space to try and find answers there. But once again, a lot of these answers are always connected to adults and adult opinion. So there's a lot of scriptures, there's a lot of academic books and writings, but it always depends on who conveys this message. I think, and then later in life, I even tried climbing the corporate ladder, from the bottom end to the top end out, and trying to see if you can get life energy and satisfaction from that space. And I think if I have to reflect back, and probably the core message to young people and my son is, I think it's important to question things, I think it's very important to accept that we don't put people, and adults especially, if you're that young, on a pedestal, I often bump into some phenomenal young people that just has a richness of knowledge and understanding of the world and truth. I think in my journey of truth, Eckhart Tolle explained it the best in terms of saying, truth is probably always that which never changes over time, and which is the same for every one of us. So I think probably my core message is find your own truth, and get to know yourself and what you want and what your aspirations and a meaningful life purpose, and try and pursue that as early as you can and try and figure it out. I took most of my life just trying to figure out what my meaningful purpose in life is. I don't know, it's a bit of a broad answer, but I hope it answers it.
No, that's a perfect answer. And I think that for me, I feel like I have more questions now at this later stage in my life than I've ever had before. And I think, to bringing back to your point about young people asking questions now, I think for me, in my experience, we never got the opportunity to ask that many questions, or the tolerance from parents to be able to sit down and have a conversation with you, and that's just in my environment growing up. And now I would encourage that with my son. I would encourage healthy conversation, inquisitive minds, and constant questioning of who we are, what our purpose is, why are we here, what are we, just being, what our servitude is on this earth. And I think that it's so refreshing to see nowadays that the younger people are so aware, they are so insightful, and seem to be wise beyond their years. And I think, Mick displays that, your son just does definitely display it, as does mine. And almost I kind of feel like the more young people that I've been coming into contact with, the more I feel that there are such old souls in this world. So that for me is very encouraging, because it also it shows you the level of consciousness that we currently have, especially with the youth, which is extremely admirable, and gives me quite a sense of peace and understanding that, as they grow, maybe this world will change for the better. So thank you for your answer on that. I'd just like to now respond to our sincere Ronald, who's always joining us every week on our podcast. Thank you, Ronald, and hello to you, and a good afternoon from a very lovely, sunny Johannesburg, South Africa. Ronald is joining us from the US, as he does each week. We don't have any other comments from the audience. So, Ettiene, let's move on to the next question. And that is, what strategies or mindset shifts help you maintain resilience in the face of challenges? And we certainly have challenges, right, in the course of our lives, in the course of our life, to know each other. But can you just let us know what do you use to help you through this?
I think the one thing that has always carried me through some difficult times is that, when these bad things or challenging times in your life appear, and they do appear, it's part of life. No matter how much people have or don't have, each one of us carry our own load of challenges. But these challenges can either define you, some of them can destroy you, or it can strengthen you. And I've always kind of looked at these type of challenges as an opportunity to grow, because it's very easy to go into a dark space and feel sorry for yourself. But yeah. So I don't know. These challenges these days, I look at them as a stepping stone. I try not to get too close to the problem. I try and keep my mind open and objective. And sometimes I would actually look at myself from outside of myself, just to get a wider perspective on these challenges. And I think maybe over time, although I was always very committed to knowledge and wanting to understand things, I think over the years I've also realized that one of the very important traits to have is a willingness to be wrong. You mentioned I came from a multicultural relationship and marriage, and I think what some of these things have taught me over the years is that every day that I wake up, I can have new answers to old questions. You and I have spoken about this often. Just my definition of God from the time I was brought up, and then doing my own journey. From a strong Christian background then converting to Islam, reading up about a lot of different religions, and then moving into my own spiritual journey. Yeah, so I think the willingness to be wrong and to grow is important. Someone once said, it's important to always be a student, sometimes a teacher, but never consider yourself an expert, So, yeah, I think I'm less set in my ways than I used to be. So being right isn't that important anymore.
That's very interesting. But moving from getting into interracial relationship and then moving from that into marriage, can you explain to us a little bit about that and about the challenges that you found moving into this new space? Like a day-to-day challenge, something that you only realized once you were in it. And how did you move through that? Or how did you
Yeah,
work through those?
I think, and South Africans will probably understand it a bit better. But yes, I was born in the late 60s in a very apartheid-driven country and community. And the community I grew up in was pretty much right-winged as well. I think I was quite lucky in the sense that my dad was a bank manager. So we moved, I was in 11 different schools in my lifetime. So I got exposed to quite a bit of people and different communities. But I think, just looking at communities from the inside out, as an example, and I mean, you would understand it as a South African. I think when I told my parents that I'm marrying an Indian lady, the first question my parents asked, well, my mom actually, was related to color. Is it a light skin tone? Is it a dark skin tone? And whereas from my wife at the time's parents' perspective, they were more concerned about religion. Will he convert or not? And both of these questions were both driven from community influences, the communities that we grow up in. So in the Muslim community, it was very important that someone would convert to Islam. Where in the community I grew up, race was a much bigger issue. So I think looking at these things from different perspectives, the day my son was born, something definitely shifted. And I think my view of the world, and maybe more specific South Africa as such, has changed. And I'm more focused on what we have in common than what makes us different. And I think these are some of the blessings that came with having a son that comes from both of these backgrounds, because they don't have a choice. He doesn't have a choice. He looks at the world as inclusive, and he doesn't have loyalties. Well, he's got loyalties to both sides. So I think some of my biggest experiences is, it's much of the same. It doesn't matter on which side of the fence that you are standing on. The details might be different, but in essence, the principles are pretty much the same.
Thank you for that. I think let's just take a little bit of time to acknowledge some of the comments that were made. Let's go to MH Sheikh. And good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We would just acknowledge the presence here. Ronald has some comments, and he says he agrees how the importance how the neurobiological processes must be initiated and stimulated in the home. And he says that when do we learn of ourself beyond behavior and conformity? So yes, lots of challenges, definitely, Ronald. And I think maybe if in the comments, if our viewers could send us some comments or questions perhaps on what your understanding of these challenges or interracial, interreligious challenges are, because this is something that we historically have experienced in South Africa and maybe not as common to you guys overseas. So if you have any comments or questions for Ettiene, please do take the time to send them through to us. We will go back and address them if possible. But Ettiene, I've come from a home where my dad was grew up as a Christian, and he was classified as colored, and he married my mum, who was Muslim, and he also converted, but he didn't convert because of the relationship with my mum, but he had converted prior to even knowing her. So it was a little bit different, a different scenario for him, but it does, of course, pose challenges, because you can imagine, and I think this would be a lot more impactful for you because you grew up your entire life in that religious faith, and you had these practices and cultures and traditions that you would abide by, and all of a sudden, I'm assuming you must have been in your 30s when you converted and married. So it's like a whole lifetime that you suddenly now have to change or view life differently. And it's basically literally from starting from scratch again. But do you find that there were some similarities or more similarities than you would actually think that there would be?
Yeah, absolutely. I found, especially specifically when it came to religion,
Yes.
often the scriptures and the writings on these things are often pure. You know, I find in all instances, the moment people get involved and people's interpretations get involved, the meaning within these things changed quite a bit.
Yes.
And I try and focus on the important things in life that's got a bit more substance to it. So I try to stay away from the dogma and having discussions about dogma and how things should be done. But I truly believe that our purpose on earth is continued expansion. So I think I've stopped feeling guilty about, because nothing is lost. We just build on things. And in the early years, I felt very guilty about, because, you do feel you let your community down and you let people down. But there's a lot of other people that's on a similar path. And so I try not to limit myself when it comes to expansion. They say your vibe or your vibration determines your tribe. And I think what does happen if people don't move with you is as your vibe changes, your tribe becomes quite small, but I find people that are still close to me and the people that's walked the path with me, people like yourselves, these are soul connections. These are people that I can sit with and we can really connect on a soul level and have meaningful conversations about important things in life.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to our next question, and that is, how has overcoming past difficulties shaped your current level of grit? And I think maybe you can speak about this, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your professional life, but
Yeah. Yeah, I remember as a young man within the media industry, I don't think, and most young people go through this, there wasn't anything I couldn't do, and there wasn't a challenge uh, that I couldn't conquer, so you feel you can conquer the world. And there was a lot of battles that I got myself involved in, which was not necessarily necessary. Uh, and I must say, a friend of mine, Gordon Patterson, which you would know as an old doyen within our media industry, we had a long conversation one day, and he told me, just remember, you cannot fall on your sword for every battle, And I think those were very wise words. And these days, I just choose my battles. I don't try to get involved in things that I'm not necessarily passionate about. Anything that is wrong or normally rubs me up the wrong way. But yeah, I choose my battles. I'm not as fiery as I used to be, I think.
and I think you choose to protect your space or the
Yes.
peace that you have in your space, and that has a huge impact on the people, like you say, or the tribe that you have around you. And as we go through life, we tend to be a lot more selective. And I don't know whether that just it. I think it automatically comes from the vibration you are at, or the frequency at which you are vibrating, and just automatically it allows you to shed those that are not meant to be in your space any longer, and attract those, even if they're just minimal. You need, it's more about the quality of your circle rather than the quantity anymore. And I think, as you know, when you are younger, it's about how many people do you know, and you want to be out there meeting, like, you know thousands of people, and the number of friends you have is, so indicative of how popular you are. And those things almost seem so superficial now at this stage in my life, in my experience at least. And I think you also feel the same. So it's more
No,
about
yeah, sorry, absolutely. I think the one thing, I don't always get it right, but I really try and protect my centeredness and my peace with everything that I've got, because that is where my strength lies. If I'm calm and centered, it allows me to rise to challenges, and it gives me a much better objective view of the world in that space. So, yeah, I think these days I walk away from situations and people that disturb that inner peace. I think I've told you the story before, but I always find it very interesting. A very important poet in the Afrikaans community called Langenhoven at some stage walked just across St. George's Street in Cape Town, and halfway through with the traffic, he suddenly stopped, and the person with him asked, what is wrong? And he just gathered himself, and then they moved across the road. And when they got to the other side, the young man asked him, but why did you just stop in the middle of the road? And he said, no, I just needed to reconnect to God. I just lost my connection for a moment. And for me, that is so beautiful, So just trying to keep that connection, because from that point, I can face challenges much easier.
yeah. And I think being selective now about which challenges are worth your while or worth taking on is something that has become so prevalent, and it affects every aspect of your life. Like you say, when you are in a state of peace, it affects your life, whether it is in corporate or whether it's at home, whether it's in the interaction with your son, whether it's on the paddle courts, in the sports that you're playing. Once you have that centeredness, it allows you to be so peaceful within yourself, and you then relate to the people in your life so differently, and the connection then is a much stronger connection than you would usually have.
Yeah, I think it allows you to show up with your full potential, if that makes sense. Frankel said, between stimulus and response, there's a choice. And, the closer you are to being aware and in the moment, it allows you to make better choices in that specific moment, because, and it helps with the quality of life.
Absolutely, because in that space, that determines what your life is going to be like, right? It
Absolutely.
determines.
And that space determines the next space. Yes.
Correct, yeah. And it determines who you are as a person as well, in the way that you respond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's take some comments, and lots of comments from Ronald. Thank you so much, Ronald, for your interaction. And Ronald has to say, how much more do you rely upon your personal faith as you get older? Passion is important. Oh, yes. Not as fiery. The tribe dwindles.
Yeah. Ronald, I must say, I agree with you. I think, I think what I've learned, when I was in a corporate, I found my headspace and my heart space separating. And I've probably tried the last 15 years to bring that space back in. And I must tell you, when in the past I would make head decisions, I think I'm a more integrated being. So decisions and faith comes from a much wider source these days than it was in the past. I was a very intellectual, headspace-driven person, and these days, I think females are blessed by having more natural talent in it. That I try and tap into my full being, and moving into the heart space, and just tapping into how certain decisions makes you feel or makes other people feel. So yeah, I think maybe more self-reliant, but also maybe more connected, because I think energetically we are all connected, and I'm just trying to tap into that space when it comes to decisions.
Okay. Ronald has a question, and he says, do you find yourself drifting away from people as you grow and your outlook changes?
Yeah, no, that is a sad reality. And sometimes you just have to understand that some of your tribes are limited. I love sport, I love motorcycling, and with some of these groups, that is what it is limited to. But definitely, the core people in my life have drastically changed over the years. But I must say, another blessing is, as you change your vibration, if you just kind of keep your eyes open, it's very interesting, the serendipity of new people drifting into your space as well. So there's always new people, and phenomenal new people with fantastic energy that drifts back into your space as well.
Correct. And that's the beauty of it, is that as you progress in your life, there's no amount of new people. I mean, you don't know tomorrow who you might be meeting or is meant to come into your life. But when you are in that space of total acceptance, and in your comfort zone, and where you are at your full potential, where you are so present and you're so in tune with who you are, that's when you start attracting the people without any effort at all. You start attracting the right people into your life, and you wonder, oh, I would never ever have imagined to have met someone like this, but that is who's meant to be in your life because of the personal state that you have found yourself in, or the potential.
Yeah, and I think the way I look at the world, we don't all feel great every day, but when you get yourself to a point and you can kind of view the world as or from a space of abundance, but instead of scarcity, then suddenly you see opportunities and new people and new doors opening up along the way. Not always easy to be in that space, but that's why I try to keep my core and my connection as strong as I can.
Just one more comment from Ronald. And he says, I saw the agenda, but not the agendas. Purpose over people. Corporate outcome minded. Changing and seeking my heart influence more. Your thoughts on
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Somewhere I read, if you measure the energy from the heart space, it's the vibrations are 100,000 times stronger than the mind space. And yeah, I would like to challenge people to just try, experiment with it, play with it. It's very interesting if you tap into this space, what you can change, and believe in miracles. You can tap into a bigger world.
A bigger world, a better world indeed. And let's move on to our next question, which has to do with grace. In what ways do you incorporate grace into your daily interactions with others?
Yeah, grace. Jamila, you know me better. I'm not necessarily a graceful person. I wish I could be more graceful. I would love to be more graceful. I do choose my words a bit more careful. I've got quite a bit of a facetious personality, and I like. I think since I was a young boy, when you're a little ginger kid that grows up, you kind of build in mechanisms to protect yourself, and wit and sarcasm is probably my biggest flaw.
It would be a coping mechanism, wouldn't it?
Yes. But yeah, I aim to be more graceful, but we're still far from that. But we're getting there. We're getting there slowly.
We're getting there, and I think it depends also on the circle that you have around you and how comfortable they make you feel, and their
Yeah,
environment allows you
yeah,
to be yourself.
that's true. I tend to say things the way I see it, but then again, my circle also allows for it.
Yes.
My close circle aren't people where I have to walk on eggs. So I think, and people can read my energy, and I'm more aware of their energy as well. So maybe the process is a bit more graceful and more holistic. But yeah, still working on the grace part.
I see. We've got another comment from Ronald. Let's see what he's got to say. He says, grace is required more so in my later years of marriage. That's interesting. How can you relate to this, Ettiene? Would
Yeah,
your
no, I think it comes with age. Um, I always think of my dad. In his later years, he became quieter and quieter and quieter. And I think grace comes with age, in the sense that you don't sweat the small stuff. You don't have to comment on everything. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. Yeah. So I agree with Ronald. I think we don't sweat the small stuff as much, and we're more likely to oversee the little things.
Yeah, and I think that at that stage in your life, you do so much of internal work and you question who you are, and you start to become more aware of what your personality type is, that the other stuff doesn't seem as important anymore to respond to, because you're so busy
Yeah,
yourself and realizing who Etienne is or who Jamila is, that and understanding and taking accountability for yourself as a person, where you do right and you do wrong, and you make good decisions, you make the decisions that are not so good, but you are a lot more forgiving toward yourself, and you are able to extend that to others out there.
yeah, and I think to Ronald's point on marriage, I think in relationships as well. I think I've gotten to a point where you don't try and change other people as much, and you focus rather on yourself than trying to change your partner, because ultimately that's all that any of us want. You just want to be
Yeah,
accepted,
yeah,
and for you to be accepted, you must also be accepting of others the way they are. It
correct.
doesn't mean you don't have an opinion, but I think we know enough to know that you can't really change other people.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, the focus becomes so squarely on you and how you are living your life. To what potential, to what authenticity are you living your life? And once we are able to do that and get to that space, we don't become so critical of the ones that are around us. And I think when you're in that space, like you attract your tribe, you also possibly attract then the partner that is meant for you. And
Yes, no, I agree on that. Yeah. I think the vibration that you resonate at is literally what you then generate in your life as well. Yeah.
yes, yeah, correct. One more from Ronald. Thank you so much, Ronald, for your interaction. All you say is so relevant, Etienne. To learn more about life, I am in #recovery. Okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely, Ronald. I mean, life is just ebb and flow. Um, yeah. It comes and it goes. And I think, these days, we all talk about love and acceptance, but I think it becomes more real the older we are. And some days it's easy and some days it's more difficult. But yeah, it also, I think it's also the importance of understanding that discipline is the one tool in your toolbox that can guide you. For me, if I read, if I meditate, if I am active in sport, these are the things that I try and build into my life. Uh, and that discipline then allows me to be more graceful and show up at a frequency that I would want to be.
Yeah, and I think that as we get more mature in our lives, what happens is that grace and meaning, it takes on meaning for you. You get a better understanding of it, and that allows you then to bring grace into your life. Ronald says, yes, more accepting. God, grant me the wisdom to change the one I can change, and that one is me. True words, Ronald. Golden words, as we call them, golden nuggets. These are the ones to keep, and that is just basically who you can change. You can only change yourself, and the there's more suffering and there's more resistance and there's more challenges that come when you are hell bent on trying to change somebody outside of you or anything outside of you. So until you get to that realization that I am the only one that I can change, that is when you will see progress and success in your life. Ettiene, let's move on to the next question. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. We just have 10 minutes left to go. And our next question is, can you recall a specific moment when you felt the impact of grace, either in giving or in receiving?
Yeah. I think there was a moment. I did a program with Dr. Baruch Benai, and I've always been on this journey in search of meaning and a greater purpose. And they say the moment you start questioning your existence and how we come to life and who we are, that is the moment that awareness rises. And I think on this journey with Baruch, he helped me and guided me towards me defining my purpose on earth. And whether people would accept or agree with it or not was irrelevant. But it was something that totally resonated with me on a vibrational level. And I don't know, I just had such a sense of connection to the greater universe and to everything around me. So yes, I would, that as a specific moment was one of the key shifting points. Because the moment I figured out the direction and where I wanted to go and the impact I wanted to make in life, and understanding that, purpose comes from fulfillment, and fulfillment is about giving and servicing, or it's about being of service to humanity. So for me specifically, that was a very significant moment. And I think it's probably the moment that I decided that these are the type of things that I would want to share with other people as well, which then slowly drifted me into the coaching space.
Well, let me just respond to that and give you a real-time example of how that pays forward, right? Where you received from Baruch, and I will just share with you guys, with our audience, that I went through a terrible breakup some years ago. And I literally felt like my world had just deteriorated. I felt hopeless. I just had nothing left in the tank to move forward, and I was at such a low point in my life. And for me, that specific moment of grace came, Ettiene, when you held space for me and you helped me realize that these are the experiences that we go through, and we're here to learn, and there's lessons that we need to take from um, whatever it is that we go through in our lives, be they relationships, be they romantic ones, or ones that we have with our friends or colleagues at work, or whatever the case may be. But you held that space for me, and with such grace. And I will forever be thankful for that, because you literally shifted me back onto my path to move forward. And likewise, as you say, you came to that realization that our fulfillment of life is in giving to others, in servitude. And that is how we find our purpose. Our purpose is to serve. And you were one of the instrumental people that helped me to come to that realization. So, whatever it is that we go through in our lives, by no uncertain means, we're part of the cycle. We're part of receiving, but also giving and paying forward and continually learning and growing. And I'm sure that we all have these moments of feeling grace, or the impact of grace that it has on us, whether it comes from receiving it or giving it. So, that's what I think. Let me just at this time take the opportunity to say thank you so much for that. It's something that will always stay with me, and it's something that I will always be grateful to you for.
Massive pleasure. But you then also paid it forward to a lot of people that we know. But yes, yeah, and I think it's like a bit of a snowball,
Yes.
Within that, a lot of initiatives started. We started some initiatives together, and slowly but surely, we can't change the whole world, and not the whole world wants to be changed.
Mm.
But yeah, if you feel down, I think the best thing is just to be kind to the next person, because it takes your mind off of yourself. And yeah, you never know. It's just that smile or acknowledgement of someone that is in need of it that can literally change their life in that moment.
Yeah, and just to click on that point, you say that be kind to the next person, but what you made me realize is that I needed to be kind to me. And you made sure that you emphasize this, because this is something that we so often forget to do, is to be kind to ourselves. We hold ourselves in such high standards, and we hold ourselves accountable to that, as if we are these superhumans, these super beings, but we need to just allow ourselves
Yeah.
to be kind and to accept that, we have these insecurities, we have our moments of insecurities, and it's all normal and natural. And
Yeah.
it's about how we recover from it.
No, absolutely, absolutely. That is a path I'm on as well, because very recently I only realized, that self-love is very important, and it's important to delve into that. And that's a difficult journey. We don't always accept love from ourselves, or just accept love in general from people around us as well.
Yeah. Just one more comment from Ronald, and he says, each nourishing the other. Absolutely, Ronald. I agree with that. Perfect. Yes, thank you. Many are blessed from that moment. So beautiful, the gratitude. Okay, and I think let's move on then to our next question, which um, rolls so well into the next, and that is on gratitude. What practices do you have in place to cultivate a sense of gratitude in your life?
Jamila, I battle. I would love to have a journal at the end of the day, a gratitude journal. I think that is probably the best way to do it. Um, but I find when I get into silence and I just become silent, especially if I can do it in nature, um, I mean, how can you sit in nature and look at a beautiful tree and not be calm? And then suddenly from there, the gratitude starts growing, um, and just accepting. I think for me, one of the best things that I've learned is from Buddhist tradition, where you just sit and you don't judge. And I find in those moments of non-judgment, simple things: is it hot? Is it cold? Do I feel thin? Do I feel fat? All those simple little things that our minds play on continuously. So if I can get myself into a space of non-judgment and stillness, I find that is my window into gratitude, because then suddenly I become just so much more appreciative of everything around me.
Yeah, and I think also, and I think I'm stressing on this, that the people that you have around you allow you to be present and to be grateful and to remind you of how much you have to be grateful for. Like we've sat many a time and where if you are down or I'm down or our partner Mark is down, we take the time to sit back and question each other and say, okay, you're going through these challenges, but let's rather look at the positive. Let's look at everything that all the blessings that we have in our lives. And often we've done this where we've said, let's just stop and let's do an affirmation on the positive aspects of our lives. So it's really so important who you keep around you, what the company is around you, and be selective in who you have in your space. We have time just for one more comment. And again, it is from Ronald. And he says, my wife's knees were shot. She expressed gratitude for every step she could take. That is beautiful, Ronald. Well, everybody, we've come to the end of our hour. It gone by so quickly, as it does week in and week out. But we are so grateful and thankful, Ettiene, for you to have
Thank you
given
so
us
much.
your time and your incredible thoughts and your wisdom. And thank you, Ronald, um, who says #grateful to be here with us. We are so grateful that you joined us and that you interact with us so wholeheartedly. And we really do appreciate your view. But Ettiene, again, thank you very much from Anissa and I. This was a fantastic session, and we hope to have you again soon on our podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And yeah, if anyone has anything to say, please do respond in the comments, and we will also reply to your comments. So thank you, and we will see you next week, same time, same place. Have a lovely weekend and stay blessed. Thanks. Bye bye.